the Cinematic Orchestra, cutting his teeth in 1990 by starting a label and releasing a track as a student, as well as DJing for a pirate radio station in South London back in '94. Jason Swanscoe was clearly destined for a career in music. Influenced by the likes of composers Bernard Herrmann, Lalo Schifrin, Quincy Jones, Jean-Claude Vannier, Nina Simone, by 1990 he and his friends couldn't have wished for a better start, having formed the Cinematic Orchestra, releasing the debut album Motion. A fantastic album using samples mixed with live instruments, merging the world of samples, electronic music and live jazz into a modern listening experience. Yeah, the album was a success, but they were invited by the organisers of the Porto European City of Culture to perform where Man with a Movie Camera soundtrack was inspired. And also the Directors Guild invited them to perform at the ceremony for Stanley Kubrick's Lifetime Achievement Award. Very fitting. This album led on to the making of what I would say is their best album to date, one of those perfect albums, Every Day, released in 2002. Not surprising it went gold and was one of Ninja Tune's best-selling albums at the time. The album's original release in 2002 only has 7 tracks, but absolutely no fillers, even though I put forward my own ideas for the soundtrack when asked to help with some still photography on the movie Kidulthood. I was completely impressed with the soundtrack I ended up with, as All Things to All Men was on the end, in the closing credits. Just an epic track to finish with. A year later, the hugely successful Man with a Movie Camera soundtrack was made to accompany the re-release of the 1929 classic film by Russian director Dziga Vertov. When Fleur came out in 2007, I must admit I was left wanting. Time and Space is easily the best track on the album, featuring Rhodes, and that's where I'll leave it. And as I often revisit his album to see if I've missed something, and the result is always a disappointing no. And luckily, Late Night Tales mix arrived shortly after, in 2010, I believe, which is when I was first introduced to the mighty Flying Lotus. Maybe a long break was needed at this point with their 4th album, To Believe, released in 2019, and it didn't disappoint. Inspired mostly when living in LA, needing a new hunger for inspiration, having been immersed in the New York and London scene for many years, and thankfully, although they'd like to continue to work with new artists for new projects, they invited Roots Manuva back to respark that All Things to All Men magic from 2002. To me, their underlying message in their music seems to be always question what truth is, because more often than not there is a paid motivation behind everything commercial, we are told. Therefore, it's important to believe in something outside of the commercial world that isn't related to the inertia of the media noise that really not helping people directly in everyday life. Remember, time is money, including yours. Anyway, let's stick to the music. Here's my carefully cherry-picked top 10 made for a spiritual journey